Welcome to Some Dare Call It Conspiracy. I am Brent Lee.
And I'm Neil Sanders.
And I'm Greg Hall. Welcome to Movie Night.
And welcome to Some Dare Call It Conspiracy. We are back this time with Sounds of Freedom movie night. How we doing, guys?
Not bad. Not bad. You know, we watched Sound of Freedom. Hey. So,
That
yeah,
exactly sums up how I feel. I was excited when I watched this.
yeah,
How do you guys? Yeah.
It's been a long time waiting. We've been waiting for this one.
yeah. Like but this was quite slightly strange. It's like you couldn't really get hold of the film. I mean, even if we're brutally honest, even the we watched it on a shonky link. Like, but yeah, I'm not even sure it's been released here. Now there are certain reasons behind that. Like, this is one of the interesting things because the film itself, it's not just a film really, it's a cultural phenomenon. It's become part of the culture war. It was incredibly successful in its sort of grassroots marketing campaign, and it's become the sort of film du jour for a certain type of person, like evangelical Christians, people connected to QAnon, people connected to Trump, and stuff like that. They really praise this film as a very, very important film. There are certain reasons around that. Don't worry, we've got receipts.
You've got the notes.
Yeah, this is the thing. This is to say, it's not just the film, is it? It's the marketing behind it. It's like the actual sort of the reaction to it and everything. Like, for example, it was described in The Guardian and various other places as like a sort of QAnon fantasy for sort of like stay-at-home dads or something something like that. And I was expecting it to be wacky and to have a lot of QAnon tropes in it and stuff like that. And
Yeah, so
it
was
just
I.
isn't that at all. That's not what the
Yeah.
film is. The film
Yeah.
is not a QAnon film. Now, are there certain tropes within it that might sort of intersect with certain aspects of QAnon and certain other sort of theories? Yeah, there are, but we'll go into those. But actually, the film itself is a fairly straightforward sort of thriller. It's not crazy. There are religious aspects to it. There is a sort of subtext to it, but it's nowhere near as preachy or as crazy as some of the people and some of the reviews have made it out to. Like, I think quite a lot of the reviews got onto it and basically felt the need to sort of express negativity towards the film that was connected more around the sort of circus around it than the actual film itself. That doesn't mean that the film is any good, right? However, all of the criticism that I had seen of it, or the majority of the criticism that I had seen of it, was more to do with the things that Jim Caviezel believes and the things that Tim Ballard believes. And like, both of those are proponents of QAnon. In fact, Tim Ballard, who is the main character played by Tim Caviezel in this, he runs an organization called Operation Underground Railroad. Why it's called that, we'll get to that bit. But basically, it's an organization that helps in rescuing trafficked people, specifically or mostly or mainly trafficked children. You know, on the surface, that's a good thing, obviously. You know,
Yeah.
we want people rescued from situations like that. And what this film is a sort of an explanation. It's kind of almost like a sort of sales pitch for Tim Ballard and for the work that he does, really.
True.
Like, isn't it, basically? But basically, Jim Caviezel, who also played Jesus in Mel Gibson's Passion of the Christ, he's the main character in this, and he is very, very into QAnon and believes it wholeheartedly. It ties into, he's got very sort of fundamentalist Christian religious beliefs by the sounds of it, and he's promoted a lot of this. Tim Ballard himself has actually promoted QAnon. In fact, and they also
Has he?
Adrenochrome. Yeah, he went on Jordan Peterson's show or podcast, or was interviewed by Jordan Peterson, and he talked about Operation Underground Railroad exposing a satanic baby factory in Africa.
I read this.
Where basically they would be doing satanic rituals on these children that they were essentially farming in this place in order to get their blood like charged with adrenochrome, and this would be then sold or whatever, distributed through various sorts of Illuminati sex parties and stuff like that. Now, he's not offered any evidence to back this up, and as we probably discussed before on this podcast, adrenochrome you can get on the dark web, right? Okay, pretty easily, and it's crap. Like psychonauts take it. Like I don't know if you know what psychonauts are, but psychonauts are basically like people that just experiment with substances, like all sorts. There's people that basically do sort of the alter molecules, they're chemists themselves, and they go, well, if I take this out and put this in, what will this substance do? And there's literal people that are basically like, there's lists of chemicals and in the substances like hundreds long, and they're ticking them off and doing them, and then reporting on what the sort of results are, which is a good drug, which is a good, party drug, essentially. And adrenochrome, apparently, for about a second, it feels a bit speedy, and it gives you a massive headache. It doesn't really do anything. It just doesn't work. If you're trying to achieve any of the sort of the minute sort of effects that you get from it, having a headache or feeling a bit speedy, you could basically take speed or do poppers. Like, so, it's pointless, essentially.
Just grab an EpiPen.
Yeah, you could do any of these things. You could choke yourself. Don't choke yourself.
No.
Okay. Like, but you could. Like, so this is the thing.
I don't
So
think
when
the advertisers want to hear that one.
No, they don't. But John's ties. Don't choke yourself. Anyway, like, so Sound of Freedom. So we've been trying to get hold of this for a long time. In fact, wasn't this the one? This was the thing that sort of started the idea for this. If we could watch Sound of Freedom and then comment on it, and I mean, right.
We've watched two other movies since.
Yeah,
exactly. So
But
I don't know.
this was the seed, really, wasn't it? Like that kind of kick-started these chats, and just to add to what you said, Neil, because I think the way you framed it was brilliant. Like, going into this, there was so much hype around like the QAnon stuff, like the want to see like adrenochrome, satanic rituals. None of that was there, and I think a lot of it, this film was originally shelved. Like, I think it was completed in 2018, shelved by Disney. Yeah. And I think it's been genius marketing.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
With the QAnon crowd. And it's been like, amplified by Mel Gibson, by Ben Shapiro, by Donald Trump. It is, and I think Mike Rothschild said it, like, it's marketed to the QAnon believers.
Absolutely,
it's been embraced by that community. And the actor is a huge part of it. But there's nothing really in it that is like that QAnon-y in a way. But the way it's been marketed is genius in a way.
Absolutely. And we're going to come on to that, because there was a lot of sort of different things that they did, reaching out to sort of right-wing influencers. They had a thing up called Pay It Forward. There is an explanation for, like, because there's all sorts of strangeness about it, right? Can you remember when people were saying that there was empty theatres, even though they were struggling to get? There is an explanation for that, which we will come to later. There is also an explanation for why the film was shelved, or seemingly why it was shelved. Now, obviously, this was all framed as the film was too important, or the film was too close to the bone. That's why Disney, satanic Disney,
of course,
that's why they wanted to sort of stop the film. And what happened was this small company called Angel Films, I think it's called.
Angel Studio.
They basically went, all right, if you're not going to have it, can we have the rights to it? I don't know exactly what the deal was, but then they released it. And as you say, they created this incredible hype about it, so that people were clamoring to see this film before it was even in the theaters. And then when it was in the theaters, something happened that created, like, more drama around that, more hype around that, more people wanting to see it. And it was actually, for a short time, the most successful film financially. It was beating blockbusters. I forget which ones. I think it was like something like The Meg
Indiana
or some
Jones.
shit. Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was. It was Indiana Jones. Crikey.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Now, people say that it made more money than Indiana Jones. Not quite. It did on one specific weekend. Regardless, it was an incredible sleeper hit. Like, it made a huge amount of money off a very, very small budget, and as you said, with a very, very genius marketing campaign. So
I read it's grossed 238 million,
wow.
and the budget was 14.5 million.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's
And
done well. It's done very, very well.
yeah, incredibly well. And like, yeah, as you say, like, we will discuss the marketing later because this is the thing, right? Okay, with the film, there's a certain degree of hype. So what we want to talk about is, let's talk about the film, see if it was any good, go through the film. There will be spoilers, I'm afraid. And then I want to talk about the hype behind it, the marketing, how accurate the film actually was. I want to talk a bit about Operation Underground Railroad, and then I want to talk about a little bit of the criticism that has been leveled at the film, see if that's valid. And then finally, there were certain, shall we say, accusations that were leveled at various people connected to the film, some of which were sort of slightly overblown by the media, and some of which are ongoing in court cases and stuff like that. But again, we'll come to that later because there are some that would say that the actions of certain people are connected to the film have in many ways undermined the message of the film or what they wanted to convey, basically. So, I mean, just off the bat, what did everybody think of the film? Brent, did you enjoy the film?
Look, I didn't really. It was. I went in good faith, and I thought I'm just going to watch this as a movie.
Mm-hmm.
And like the first 5 minutes, I thought, okay, this is better than the last movie we were like we were thinking of watching that was like on this level, like My Son Hunter.
Yeah,
it was
the
like 10
budget's
times
clearly
better than that.
better, yeah, isn't it?
Everything
And,
was better about it. Acting was better.
Yeah.
The kids in it, fantastic actors.
Yes,
Up and down. I thought they were brilliant. Some of the cinematography was cool. The Christian element kind of annoyed me because it felt not very genuine, more of a virtue signal.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that it's a movie that should never have been made. Didn't need to be made because we all know about this kind of thing, and it wasn't done correctly. And
well, that was something. Sorry to interrupt, but that was something that really struck me. It's like a lot of the time when you see the praise of the thing, people say it really made me think, and it really drew attention to the plight of these children. It's like, sorry, did you need to see Jim Caviezel crying to know that selling children to foreigners for sex was bad? Like, because
exactly, right?
Maybe I'm just an old prude, right? But I've always considered that to be on the dodgy side. So yeah, like, but sorry,
I just think like this version of it is like, yeah, it's a movie that didn't need to be made. What could have done better to highlight the situation is a documentary. You know, if they had made a feature-length documentary with that budget, went down there, shot on location, maybe got some people involved to tell the story a lot better than this kind of, I could just tell it felt like such like a fairy tale in a way. Yeah. And I just, that was my thoughts on the entire thing.
What did you think, Greg?
Okay. No, I feel I should add a caveat to this story, okay? Like, the past 6 weeks, I've been incredibly ill, like recovering from like the world's longest cold. Been incredibly ill. So I've been stone cold sober, not drank anything, not smoked anything, not had any intoxicants or intoxication, I should say. And then, so it came to the day of viewing it, and I've kind of been putting it off, thinking, okay, it wouldn't have leapt out to me. And the day I was going to watch it, I found a year-old little bottle of THC oil. And I thought,
nice.
you know what? If I'm going to drink this, now's the night drink it.
You drank
it's a
it?
year old. It might not even be that good. But net the whole thing. So on the one hand, when I watched this film, I had a beautifully profound and emotionally moving, almost transcendental experience. But on the other hand, that had absolutely nothing to do with the film itself, which I found incredibly mediocre, just completely sensationalist, and just trite, if I'm honest.
It was a long film. It must have seemed like it lasted for about 4 weeks to you.
Yeah. It was life-changing. What can I say? Maybe not in a good way. I think, like, first of all, I think what Brent said is, like, spot on. Like, first of all, like, the themes it tries to tackle are deadly serious. They're something that always resonates with people. And that's the stuff about the way this whole thing is like a political culture war thing, like the whole save the children. It's like one of the things that's going to resonate with every single human being. Like, of course, that is like something that is so important. And I just felt like, as Brent said, it wasn't particularly nuanced in how it explored this issue. And it played to very kind of sensational, over-the-top characterizations. And in a way that, as a filmmaker, I really believe stories are so important in how, as a humanity, stories from the beginning of time we've used as like frameworks to navigate the world around us, how we communicate, how we share moral stories, our history, we communicate through story. And I think a film like this, the way that story's been shaped is playing to such a particular audience and playing on a particular fears, very like satanic panic kind of fears of, it didn't particularly, explore this in a nuanced way and was just way over the top. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I think I gave it half a star on Letterboxd. But yeah. I mean, we can unpack it further. But that's my kind of initial overview.
Yeah. Like, my review of it was a piece of shit. Like, it was boring. It was overblown. It was incredibly self-righteous. There's a lot of problems with it conforming to stereotypes and stuff like that. Like, it plays to again, I don't want to go into too much detail here because we're going to go through the plot and then we're going to discuss this afterwards, because this is a major sort of bone of contention with that some people, including the charity Underground Railroad, Operation Underground Railroad, have raised about the film itself, that basically, in what they say is it paints an unrealistic picture of sex trafficking. Now, not to say that this type of thing doesn't happen, but there's a certain fetishization with the film that basically, like, children being snatched off the street. And whilst, again, that does happen, it's not never happened. It's more likely two things. One, coercion into sex trafficking is usually done through the lover boy technique. And so, and it takes a long time. It's a process of grooming, and it usually involves slightly older people as well. Also, it tends to involve people that you are close to, either sort of things like friends of the family, members of the family, scout masters, people that are close to you all the time that can build up a bond of trust. There isn't basically a stereotypical sex trafficker. This is the point. And a lot of the film is based on stereotypes. I mean, I'm just looking at my notes here, and one of it says, "Oh, for fuck's sake, has the paedophile got eyeliner on?"
He was the most pedophile-looking pedophile.
Now, to be fair, Greg, right, there is an argument, right, that I've heard about good filmmaking that basically says that a good film, you should be able to turn down the sound and understand what's going on anyway, or at least basically follow the sort of the film. I do and don't agree with that, but there's a degree where it just trips over into pantomime, isn't there? Really, essentially, and that's what a lot of the imagery in this film did. So now, right, let's just get into it. Right? Okay, so it starts with a big thing that says based on a true story. Is it based on a true story? Some of it is. Now here's what's slightly embarrassing as we will go through, because we broad transparency. Again, I'm looking at my notes here. Oh, fuck off. That never happened. This is incredibly bad writing. And some of the things did actually happen. So we'll come on to those as we go. So, but essentially, like, based on a true story, is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. It kind of is. Tim Ballard's a real person. We'll come on to that later. Operation Underground Railroad is a real thing. Certain elements of the film are real. Lots of the film isn't real, and lots of it is sort of based on rather sketchy stuff. But again, like any good entertainer, we will reveal at the end, otherwise you won't stick around. So anyway, we start off, and the girl, right, okay, it starts off, and it's doing a really nice zooming shot, where it's the camera's panning down, obviously on a crane or something, and it's going into the this girl's bedroom. And the only thing that struck me is like she's doing like singing. She's like and she's doing drums like. And I thought, is she trying to do the Terminator theme? Like that, and once that was in my head, I couldn't really take it that seriously. So like, but I don't think she was trying to do the Terminator theme. But anyway, right, okay. So this little girl's in Honduras, which. Like, I didn't actually pick up the first time I watched the film. I missed that bit. I thought she was in Mexico. But anyway, doesn't matter. Like, and this woman turns up, this Giselle woman. Now, this Giselle woman is based on a real woman called Miss Cartagena. Yeah, I was the same. Like, I thought, bollocks, this is heavy-handed. In fact, this is my...
no. It felt so divisive. She felt so... cliched. Wow, she was real.
The bit where the little boy walks in and she just like gives him a look like she wants to gobble him up, like the sort of like big bad wolf. And it's like, and literally my notes here say, oh bollocks, this is a bit heavy-handed, isn't it? The girl's far too cute, and the woman looking at the boy is almost pantomime villain. And so yeah, immediately off the bat, I was like, okay, so this is quite a well-made film. There's obviously a little bit of budget to it and whatnot. Like, there's a couple of decent actors in it. Jim Caviezel's in it. He's done stuff. Mira Sorvino's in it. She's Paulie's daughter from Goodfellas. I
was shocked. It took me ages to realise it was Mira Sorvino.
Well, she might as well not have been in it, if we're brutally honest. She just, again, she plays be strong trope wife. Now, again, ironically, apparently all of that is true. But let's not get bogged down. Like, but yeah, she could have been anybody. Like, I think she was kind of there potentially to add a big name to the marquee, so to speak. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because realistically, that could have been anybody in that role. But anyway, so basically, like, this girl, Giselle's turned up, and she's saying that this girl is desperately pretty and that she thinks she can get her involved in some modelling. And then the little boy comes in, who's her brother, whose name escapes me. Like, it's Rocchio, and what's the boy's name? I can't remember the boy's name, but basically, like, yeah, boy.
Manuel, I think.
Manuel, that's him. Yeah, that's him. He's based on a kid called Teddy in real life, but again, we'll come to that in a bit. And then there's loads and loads of shots of hopeful children looking out of car windows. And at this point, I thought, oh, for fuck's sake, it's going to be one of these films, isn't it? Like, as they were being driven to
How many times have you said that already in the first, like,
well, again, but the problem was, this is the thing, and I'm sure this is... But this is the thing, like, I'm sure that you found this as well, Greg. You were like, so, right, okay, so this bloke's definitely been to film school because he's using he's got to about page 5 of every textbook. How can we convey that this woman's evil? Well, what if she looked like this? What if we zoomed in? If we zoomed in on the eyes, then we would know that the dog is evil. It's stuff like that.
So there's one that, when I watch this film, there is a book. When anyone that's ever written a script, or if you teach screenwriting, there is a very famous book called Save the Cat by Blake Snyder. Mm-hmm. And Blake Snyder has a very famous, the Blake Snyder beat sheet. And it's how to write, and it's based on lots of other ideas. And I'll talk a bit later on about like Joseph Campbell's classic hero's journey. But when watching this film, like, and Save the Cat, it's not a very big book, but it's the book anyone that ever writes a script, they will have that book. And it has certain beats. And there was a moment in this when his co-worker, and I know we're not there yet, but his co-worker, Chris, turns to him and says, "It's a messed up world." And this is like the third beat in the Blake Snyder beat sheet, and it's called Theme Stated. And it even says that the protagonist won't say this. A character will say it to them.
To drive their arc.
To inspire them.
When this moment happened, I was like, oh shit, that's like Theme Stated. And even the other beats is like the opening shot and the closing shot. It says should like be in communication or in response to each other. Yeah. And, not to kind of ruin the end of the film, but closing shot is basically a reversal of the opening shot. So this film is like someone took Save the Cat and followed those beats and wrote this film from that book. Go on, Brent. What were you going to say?
On a different note, with this beat list, is say the name of the movie in it.
Probably, yeah. That would be one of the details because I know that came up as well, right? This film, literally, like you're saying, everything is kind of cliched and stereotypical. The entire narrative arc is lifted from how to write a successfully engaging hero's journey, and it hits all the beats, man. It's like AI wrote a film.
That doesn't surprise me once you know the sort of the point of this film, which is essentially it's a sales like thing for Operation Underground Railroad and Tim Ballard. That's entirely what it is. That was one of the sort of problems that I had with the film, skipping ahead again, was that basically there's no depth to anything. It's just look at hunky, manly crying Jim Caviezel doing good stuff. He's a good guy. It's so trite with it. Like, and it takes a subject that's like, but it takes a subject that is actually, it could have made a good film, and they just didn't, did they? Basically, but hey ho. So these kids are taken to this thing and this modelling thing, and when the dad turns up to pick them up, they're all whisked away. And apparently that is it's not unheard of again. This is something that happens potentially, often, usually with slightly older people. But now here's another thing as well. Like that there was one of the sort of why people were saying, "Oh, this is such a great film," because it heightens this. It makes people aware of it. And I was like, this is bullshit. There's loads of films about sex trafficking. Taken, which was a major film. Lilia Forever. Okay. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Like these are not these are not like new things in film. So basically, again,
I cannot let the Lilia Forever go past. I know, because that is such a film. And brutal. Yeah, that is a phenomenal film on this very issue, man.
It's not a date
Chitty
film.
Chitty Bang Bang is better.
Well, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you might be able to take a girl on a date for it. Lilia Forever, I wouldn't. This is not. No, I wouldn't at all. A friend of mine once took a girl out on a date, or had a date with her to watch a film, and accidentally put on The Road with Viggo Mortensen.
Oh no.
Didn't work. Didn't set the right tone. But hey ho. Now, one of the things was though, Greg, like, when the dad turns up, there was a cracking shot of the isolated door. That was really artful. It conveyed the message. And at that point I was like, all right, so this bloke's got some chops. The director's got some chops. Like, and it did. It was a glorious looking film throughout the whole thing. Like, it does look good. It's a bit, I tell you what, right, here's the thing. It reminded me of, when in music videos, they'll do like a fake film or something, or they'll do like a fake narrative where it's really Hollywood, like in a Biggie Smalls video or something like that. The whole film seemed to be shot like that. Lots of like sort of like, you know, shimmery backlights and close-ups and beads of sweat and tears. Do you know what I mean? It was very, very like clinical, if that's the right sort of way to express it. And I just thought, yeah, like, but again, I thought that this director would probably be better. And this is actually a criticism. I think he could do some brilliant music videos, like, because I think that's more suited to his style, basically.
I mean, it is an incredibly technically polished film. And I think that's part of the allure of what this film is all about. That it has to have those almost music video kind of aesthetics. It's beautifully shot, great, you know, emotive kind of camera movement. Even its use of music plays a certain sensationalism. And then the way the narrative itself is like this classic hero's journey. I mean, it's all part of the parcel of what it's about, which is just about emotionally drawing you in.
Yeah, but at what point does that become exploitative, though? That's the thing, isn't it? Like it's like
absolutely.
It's almost like he's artfully done, but so is love bombing when you pulled into the Scientologists or whatever. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's or the Mormons, or sorry, not the Mormons, the Moonies. Like, do you know what I mean? Interestingly, Tim Ballard is a Mormon, like very, very sort of keen Mormon. Went to Brigham Young University. Probably has the underpants and everything. So that's a real thing. Like, I'm not taking the piss.
The magic underpants.
Yeah, magic underpants. Like, yeah. But anyway, so
I used to think that was so satanic. Have you ever seen them? Have you ever seen them? They've got like 5-pointed stars and shit on it. They got pentagrams on them. Serious.
Have they?
Yeah.
It's quite metal. Like, fair enough. Now, right, so now the film starts. and it's then through the credits, there's loads of CCTV footage of children being snatched off the streets. Now, all of that's real. All of it's real. That's actual, real, genuine CCTV footage of kids. I don't know the circumstances, but it's all real crime footage, apparently. So that was, again, but to be honest, I was like, oh, come on, right? It's a little bit hit you in the hurty button, isn't it? Like, but anyway,
straight out the gate.
Yeah. But to be fair, you know, Seven did that. Do you know what I mean? With all your pictures of deformed people and like stuff like that. You know, it's just, if you're being kind, it's establishing a mood, isn't it? If you're being cynical, it's like, you know, it's trying to play on certain things in a rather inartful way. But you know, that's dependent on your taste, I suppose.
I would take the cynical avenue because for me, like, you know, because I'm a filmmaker myself, all film is manipulation, is construction and creation. And I think this device that kind of bookends the film, again, I don't want to ruin the end, but the way it's placed here, like we're using real CCTV footage, and then the way at the end, it kind of bookends the end of the film. I think it's doing a certain thing, is placing it within a framework
of reality.
Saying,
totally.
Right. Yeah, I'm saying that this is authentic. Yeah. This is real. And I think that's
we've already just...
when it's wrapped up with certain individuals and certain politics, you know?
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Now, again, to be fair, just to be completely fair to the film, because, like, you know, this is a criticism that we get, like, oh, it's the mainstream view, blah, 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 blah. When the film was made, it was nothing to do with QAnon. It was made ages ago and stuff like that. That's been sort of retrofitted, if that's the correct word, to it. Like, but you're absolutely right still. It's like, in the way that the film, is constructed, they are doing that. I forget which film it is. Which is the film where there's violence in the, I can't for the life of me remember. Like, where there's the actual footage of people getting shot and stuff in the credits. It does it in, like, Bowling for Columbine, but, like, there's other films where they do that same thing, but they do it better. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, this felt, again, a little bit heavy-handed, to be quite honest. So anyway, we get into the film, and Jim Caviezel, who is Tim Ballard, is on a sort of sting operation in a van outside somebody's house, which is, I don't think is how it's done. But anyway, let's not get bogged down. And this bloke's inside, this, again, another bad haircut, great big glasses, like, sort of stereotypical paedophile, and, like, badly dressed. And again, I'm just going to my notes, and it says, "Paedophile has a basement full of creepy dolls because, of course, he fucking does."
Yeah.
And again, this is like, this is why to me it was a bit more like a sort of music video. It's very shorthand. I've got to express this right away because otherwise probably because the attention span of the audience is like a fruit fly, and so they've got to like get this in before people go like, "Oh, is there something on the other channel?" Like, but anyway, so this guy is he's an internet porn guy, and he's saying to all his guys in the chat, "I'm about to download a massive load of child porn, blah, blah, blah." And then you see down in his basement, and he's got loads of videos and loads of files and stuff like that, all pertaining to lots of different children. And you can tell that this is a hardcore paedophile. Right, now the thing that struck me, right, why does all his fucking stuff, why has he got a headed notepaper?
Yeah.
My paedophile organisation. Like,
Yes.
and the logo was not only on all the files and all the bits of paper and all the pictures of kids, but it was also on his internet and stuff as well. It's like, if you're trying to get fucking caught, that, where did he get them? Did he get them off Vistaprint? Like, how's he getting his paedophile headed notepaper? That's what I want to know. And this is the things that the film stubbornly refuses to answer. Like, so, but yeah, so where does he get this thing? So that's that, like, yeah. Anyway, they arrest this guy and they take him into the prison. And at this point, this is the thing that you mentioned earlier, Tim's partner, Chris, he quits. He says that, we don't actually do anything. We've arrested apparently 288 paedophiles, but they've never actually rescued any children. So they feel that basically they're the wrong end of it. And Chris walks off, and this is one of the first of many shots of Jim Caviezel looking teary-eyed but strangely macho, like a bit woke, really, isn't it? A bit of a snowflake, really. But like, he's not a stoic MAGA man, but hey, like whatever. Right. Anyway, then Tim watches. For some reason, he's then got to go and watch the videos that they've downloaded off this paedophile and subscribe to or transcribe what's happening in them for evidence. And apparently, again, this is where it gets a bit weird because, like, Tim Ballard says that this was part of his job when he worked for HSI, part of Homeland Security. He did work for an element of the government that dealt with child pornography and internet crime and internet pornography like this. And so that is very plausible that this was part of his job. I mean, that's how evidence is sort of transcribed, isn't it? Like, people do have to watch these things. Like, so that is probably accurate. But there was again some nice shots. But again, by this point, it was so. I've put, Christ, the pacing is slow. This is so somber and so epic. It's massively overblown and incredibly worthy. Now, again, like, we are dealing with saving children from sex trafficking. So it is a worthy cause, but Christ, the tone of it was very, almost like, I don't know, he had a religiosity to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, it really felt like it was, I don't know if you've ever seen any sort of like the sort of Left Behind or any sort of like religiously made films and stuff, like where the non too subtle subtext is Christ is the way. Like,
I've seen quite a few of them.
Well, then
God's
he
not
had
dead.
that sort of hallmark amateurish, like, do you know what I mean? As
like
said,
it had even a bit of like Celestine Prophecy, kind of that sort of feel of that film. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And the thing is like, even though it is such a worthy kind of story, like, it sets up the problem that they don't save enough kids. They capture the perpetrators, but not the children.
Yeah,
and it's such a big kind of moral story, but there's something incredibly flat about it. Like, even though he goes on this mad task to rescue kids, it doesn't really feel like he goes through a particular roller coaster of a journey, and it doesn't feel like his marriage life goes any, like, it's all incredibly flat. And I think that is because this style of film, these are just good guys who are good, and there's nothing really particularly interesting of any depth to these characters.
Well, they will quite absolutely, and then we get to the one of the main plot points. Is that basically he goes to this paedophile who he's got in prison, and he uses a genius scheme, an absolute genius scheme that I'm sure nobody's ever thought of before. Right? Okay. He gets this paedophile in a cell. Right? Okay, and he says to him, I like kids in the same way that you like kids. So, like, I reckon we could be friends, mate. How's about that? And the paedophile, who is the most trusting paedophile on the planet, apart from the paedophiles later in the film, goes, yeah, sick, mate. Yeah, nice. Yeah, all right, cool. Wicked. And so what Tim says to him is to get the trust of this bloke, Oshinsky is his name. I know we've arrested you for something that's illegal. If you do something that is far more illegal than that, I'm sure we can make all of this go away. And so what he says is basically, can you get me a boy? Is there any way you can get me a child? Like, and at this point I thought, oh, this is very bad writing, right? Okay, this is very, very bad. Like, nobody in the world's gonna fall for that, right? Okay, if you just hook me up with a child, all right, you want me to traffic a child to you, and then then it's all cool, sick. Right, he's bollocks. He's utter fucking really badly written bollocks that wouldn't fly. And somebody pointed out as well, because what happens is that basically this creepy guy with the bad haircut then basically decides, yeah, okay, I'll get you a boy, and he goes and speaks to this fat guy who's supposed to be Earl Buchanan, who we'll talk about later. And this is one of the things this is bad about the film, because it implies the trope that all paedophiles know each other. There's a network of dirty Mac people all on the internet and in the seedier parts of society that interact like a spider web. And then to further fucking like build on this trope, he meets this trafficker of boys at a fucking children's playground. And it's like, oh, for crying out loud, like, this is just, why? Why would you do that? Like, it's nonsense. So anyway, this bloke, Earl Buchanan, actually has an insight to Manuel. So what he does is, this lad has been kidnapped in Honduras, put on a boat and taken to Mexico, at which point Earl Buchanan has met him in Mexico, driven back to America, spoken to this bloke at a playground, then driven back to Mexico, back to Honduras, took a plane over to Mexico, and then he's trying to traffic this kid back into the USA. And it's like, this is very, very convoluted, and like, it's just, again, not very good writing. And at the border, Tim spots him and goes like, oh, right, hang on. Like, they basically spot this bloke with a kid in his car, and they know that he's the boy that they're looking for from the photo that's given to the by Oshinsky. So what happens with Oshinsky is he turns up and he basically gives Tim Ballard a photograph of this boy and says, this is the boy that's being trafficked to you. And at which point, Tim reveals his clever ruse and says, I wasn't a paedophile at all. I was lying to you, and you fell for it like the fascist you are. And Then they come and arrest him. And I was reading a blog about this, and somebody pointed out that, yeah, you don't actually have anything that you can arrest this bloke for. It's all talk. He's just going to say it was all talk. Like, even if you actually then go and find this lad, the way that you've set up this sting, you've got no evidence against this bloke. He's bollocks, but again, bad writing.
Quick correction. The boy's name is Miguel.
Miguel, that's it. Of course it's Miguel. Standard foreign boy name. This is one of those sort of not quite South America, not quite America. One of those names. Like, it's like, oh dear. All right, fair enough. Anyway, right. So Oshinsky is arrested. They pick up this lad who's been sort of like trafficked all over the place, and he expresses to Timothée, which I thought was that's the type of shampoo, isn't it? Like,
Yes.
but it's all to do with a necklace that this lad's got that was given to him by his sister that's got the Saint Timothy on it. And again, Tim Ballard swears to Christ that this is a real story. Whether it is or not, we'll reveal later.
This was the most divicey device ever in all narrative devices. It was so, it was like, it was about as subtle as a slap in the face.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible. Like, the other point that I was like, it's like when they fly in the lad from Honduras to Tijuana and stuff like that, how the fuck do they get a passport for this little boy? And so this is a very, in some ways, it's very sophisticated. And in other ways, it's incredibly amateurish. Like, do you know what I mean? And so it just, I don't know, again, it didn't seem to sit real with me, but basically. But anyway, so the lad's been rescued. And he's taken back to his dad, who's like, "Oh, cheers for that, nice one, but I'm still a bit pissed off because they've got my daughter," like, you know, which is fair. And the daughter is still with other paedophiles, and at this point, again, this ridiculous plot point, she has a brand tattooed on the back of her neck, and this is basically so that Tim Ballard can identify her later. Like, okay. But again, it speaks to this, and I'm sure there are occasions where that sort of stuff happens. But similar to the headed note paper and stuff like that, you know, when you're in an organisation that deals with like trafficked children and stuff like that, putting anything that could tie you back to a broader plot is not a good idea. So let's tattoo all our prosers with the same like logo. Then everyone will know that we trafficked them. Like, no, don't do that. Do the opposite of that. Like so, unless he's double bluffed it and he's actually tattooed another organization's, it's like a Nike logo or something like that. Like, it was Nike. They did it. Yeah, well, that's that's for another one.
But it's all very cartoonish, right? In the decisions it's making, like it's so pantomime, like you say. It's so cliche.
Right. So then, basically, Tim has a manly cry, and I don't even know how they know that this girl's in Colombia, but for whatever reason, he goes to his boss, and they convince him to, let me go to Colombia and look for this one little girl. And it's like, that's mental. You're not going to find a single girl in Colombia, are you? But again, it's a plot device, so whatever. So they go, and he meets this bloke called Vampiro, and this is another bit of bad writing. There was an element of truth to this, right? Okay, but he goes there and he hooks up with this policeman, and the policeman takes him to a local CD bar and goes, "That's Vampiro there." What Vampiro does is he pretends to traffic children, but what he actually does is he sets them free, like rich people do with lobsters in seafood restaurants. Like, it's and at that point I thought, why is Vampiro not dead? Because if the fucking police know that he's doing this, then everybody knows that he's doing this. Right, okay. And again, it's just bad writing, because this Vampiro is actually based on a real person. But again, we'll come on to that later. And luckily, Vampiro knows Giselle, the black pimp lady from the beginning of the film who stole all these children, which is fucking convenient, to be quite honest. Like, and Tim comes up with another genius idea, right? He's going to set up a sex hotel in Tijuana that's exclusively populated by children. And so in order to do this, he needs to go to Giselle and get a load of child sex trafficked people off of them. And he asks for something like 55 or something like that. And it's like, and none of these people, these are supposed to be career criminals. Like, now, they just do it too quickly. But what it implies is that you can walk into somewhere and go, "Does anyone get me 50 kids?" And someone will go, "Yeah, I can, mate. Yeah. Like, yeah, no worries." That's going further back to that, right? Okay, the bloke, okay, that he's just made friends with, Oshinsky or whatever his name is. "Is there any way you can get me a boy, mate?" "Yeah, I can get you a boy." And then within a few days, he's got a photo lined up and everything. And he's arranging the meet. Like, fuck off. You couldn't get a 9-bar that quickly. How are you getting a fucking child, right? Like, it's just not realistic. But anyway, it's artistic license, so we'll go on. So anyway, Vampiro And then they're introduced to Fuego, who's the most sort of like sweaty, salivating, looks like he's dying of some sort of horrible disease, eyeliner wearing paedophile that you've ever seen. And at this point again, it's like, oh, for God's sake, this is really, really, really heavy-handed. But they're doing this to sort of like entrap the broader sense. Now, at this point, for absolutely no reason, Tim's boss has one scene where he turns into stereotypical angry police like commissioner or sergeant or like whatever, like out of Beverly Hills Cop or Bad Boys or any of those like Lethal Weapon or anything like that.
Operation is over. Yeah.
And it's so just completely out of time. And it's like, and what gets me is like, you've shown me no results, Tim. Absolutely no results. It's like, you sent him to fucking Colombia to look for a toddler. What results could you possibly have expected? You know, if you send someone to IKEA to look for a toddler, you'd struggle. Like, do you know what I mean? It's ridiculous. Anyway, so he decides at this point, bollocks, I'm going out on my own. And he has a chat with Vampiro. And Vampiro, he realised that child prostitute, he has this backstory, which is not true in any way, but like in real life. But he says that he was on the coke and he picked up this prostitute and he took her back to his house. And she said she was 25, but then in the morning she revealed that she was 14. And at that point he went, what am I doing with my life? And realised that basically what he should be doing is saving these children and stuff like that. And aside from the massive overblown thing, I hate to get into really grisly, like horrible details in here, but why would you pretend to be 25 if you're 14? You'll make more money telling people that you're 14. I know that's horrible. I know that makes me sound like the worst kind of fucking monster on the planet, right? Okay, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not a business advisor, right? I'm just saying that's what the fucking film's about. People going right out of the way to get children prostitutes. And the only child prostitute that this bloke interacts with pretends to be an adult for some reason, which, again, didn't really sit well with me for whatever reason. Anyway, so Tim's wife at this point advises him to quit his job, despite the fact that they've got about 100 children. And that's something I've written in my notes as well. Tim goes home. This is the whitest family I've ever seen.
Mormons.
Well, they are Mormons, absolutely. But again, if you didn't know that and you're looking from the signs and signifiers of decoding the film and whatnot, you just go, Jesus Christ, this is again family and like, you know, it's all of that. Again, it speaks to there's a certain type of person where that will be decoded as, yeah, fucking heck, have lots of kids. Like, and do you know what I mean? So anyway, she tells him to quit his job and to actually do what he says. Now, in real life, he swears that that's true, that she told him that it's a mission from God, essentially. And I think the exact phrase what she was, you're not going to stop my salvation. Get back in the jungle and rescue those kids. Now, she's having an affair, isn't she? Let's be honest, like, that's the only possible plausible explanation, right? She's knobbing the pool boy. Like, that, I mean, that's the subtext that I took from it. Anyway, maybe that's not true, but anyway. But anyway, so they go, then he does this speech about 2 million children being in hell, and he does some more manly crying. And then they go and meet Giselle, right, okay, and she straight up offers them 54 children, despite not really knowing these people. It's like, fucking hell, I've had harder times buying an eighth. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just like, yeah, like, for crying out loud. But apparently, like, that's it. And this is another bit of very bad writing. You deliver me those 54 children, right, and I'll get you $100,000. It's like, that's less than $2,000 a child. Are you fucking mental? We've already had to get a fake passport for one. How expensive? Right? Do you really think that a child, which you're going to, you're not going to buy a child for $2,000? Are you mental? It's just even wholesale, like he's doing it, right? Okay. by buying in bulk, yeah, sometimes you get a discount or whatever. But to me, that seemed like a small amount of money. I don't know whether that is true. I don't know, but whatever. But again, why does she trust them? Why does she even fucking meet them? Right? And then basically they set up a sting on an island, and she turns up with 55 kids, Fuego, the slavering pedophile, and 2 other massive pedophiles. And they decide that before they do this this deal, they're going to have a bit of a party and just have a jolly good time and stuff like that. And again, I wrote in my notes, right, why the bloody hell would she turn up with the children? This is mental. Now, now it turns out that did happen, which we'll talk about later. It was a thing called Operation Triple Take. And actually, they set up a sting with a load of trafficked people on an island, and there were 5 people arrested there, part of a multi-faceted sting by the Homeland Security and the Colombian police. And it did actually happen like that. In fact, this footage of it that you can get on the government website that shows them getting off the boats that is almost identical to them getting off the boats in the film. But it's still very, very badly written. And then basically Tim says, so how many we rescued? 55. Is Rocchio there? No, sorry, she's not there. And then at this point, Tim looks really pissed off, and I genuinely thought he was going to say, well, fucking send them all back then. I'm not interested in those ones. But he doesn't. He decides, nah, we'll keep them. And then the children have a bit of a party, right? Which again, I thought, wouldn't these children who've just been sort of sex trafficked for the last God knows how many months or whatever be a bit more traumatized than this? But no, apparently. And this is where they do the bit. You hear that? That is the sound of freedom. Now, I don't know whether any of you noticed it, but the sound of freedom went like this.
We will rock you.
It's fucking We Will Rock You.
That's what I thought, yeah.
I'm glad, it's not just me then. The sound of freedom is apparently We Will Rock You by Queen. Now, maybe when the guitar solo comes in, I'll give you that. But before that, no, that's just silly, isn't it? That's nonsense. But anyway, so they have a bit of a party. That's the sound of freedom. And then luckily, one of the child traffickers that they basically threatened by saying, I don't know if you know this, but you're going to get your balls cut off in prison or what. It goes, oh, shit, I know that one girl. Which, again, is bad writing, isn't it, basically? And what he says is that, yeah, we sold that girl. She's basically like the private sex slave of this Colombian cartel. And they live in the jungle producing coke, and she's like the sort of personal slave of the main guy who's got a silly name, and I can't remember what it is. So they pretend to be doctors, and they go to the jungle, and they realise that they can only go on his own. So Tim goes in on his own, and he manages to sneak off from the crowd, and he goes off and finds this little girl who he recognises by the tattoo on her back, which at that point I went, he didn't know that she had a tattoo on her back. He doesn't know that. He's never seen that. So how's he using that to identify it? But again, just bad writing.
Yeah.
He then kills the head of the cartel somehow. I don't quite...
The Scorpion.
The Scorpion, that's his name. And then he kills him by choking him, apparently. And as I'm watching this, right, I was sat there and thought, it's a bit of a trope in films that you strangle someone. So, do you know how long it can take to strangle somebody? It can take a long-ass time. He's doing that. Well, it's this little girl who's been continuously raped for the last God knows how long. He sat there watching him doing this. I was thinking, this poor fucking girl has had the worst time of it. Anyway, he then escapes, and I forget exactly because by this time I was bored out of my fucking mind. But he escapes with this little girl, and he goes back and gives her back to her dad. And at that point, it's as you said, Greg, it resorts to the sort of the relay of the opening shot. And she's playing, but somehow she's got a drum. And I may have missed that because I wasn't paying attention. But basically, she's got a drum now. And she's playing sort of similar stuff, but on a drum. And that's the film ends. And apparently, but I didn't bother to watch this, there's a bit afterwards where Jim Caviezel makes a sort of heartfelt pledge to sort of like fight sex trafficking and something or other, but I didn't watch that because I couldn't be bothered. So did anyone see that bit?
No.
Right,
I only
good, fair
read
enough.
about that. I didn't see that. I only read about that, like you.
Yeah.
But
And
go on, sorry. No.
well, as you say, even after I read about it, I was in no way compelled to watch it. So I didn't.
But this
Basically.
sounds like the way you explain that end part is like, again, it was so divisive. Like the girl was in like this rebel territory in Colombia. And there was a point where it was like, yeah, only you, from this point onwards, you're on your own. It was like every kind of trope.
It was like Commando.
Well, it was like Rambo. You know the latter Rambo, where basically, where he goes into Burma.
Yeah.
There's a bit where at the end, the main bad guy is also a paedophile because of course he is. And Rambo sneaks into his hut and he grabs him from behind and pulls his throat out with his bare hands. And I thought Tim Ballard was going to do that. I thought, yeah, go on, Rambo him. Like, because he's almost shot for shot, like taken. But again, I don't think that's because he saw Rambo and thought, oh, I'll nick it from that. I think it's because he's just a far broader trope, basically. And the way of setting up that scene was tension, appears behind him, release, etc. Like, do you know what I mean? So
one thing that really leapt out at me is how they kind of went as these medical workers. That was like their kind of disguise, their ruse to get into like rebel territory. And when they're stopped by like the rebel gunmen and they go through their boat, they say all they have are vaccines. And the QAnon part of my brain suddenly was like, if these were real rebels, like, you know, modern rebels like Lawrence Fox or Russell Brand, they would have gone, wait a minute, you're not coming in with some of that 5G gene
with your Klaus Schwab.
Yeah, with your Bill Gates depopulation vaccines. So I found it quite ironic that was their cover, was going in with vaccines, and they were actually embraced by the rebels, funny enough.
Now, interestingly, there's an element of truth to that. On one of the Operation Underground Railroad stings, they did dress up as doctors. It yielded no results. They didn't actually find any children. And we'll come on to that in a bit. But no, this is why. Now, this is to say the sort of there's a strange incongruency with it, because it's like the film that we saw was well made but bad, boring, overall, too reliant on stereotypes, possibly harmful in a broader sense, which we'll come on to in a second, film. The way it was sold was you literally get to see Hillary Clinton eating a child. Like it was... Now, I'll tell you how I first came aware of this film, and this was a total, complete fabrication. The first time I heard about it, it was because people were saying that Mel Gibson was executive producer, and that he was tied into...
I saw that.
Oh, yeah. So, but can you remember when they said that it was tied into a documentary that Mel Gibson was doing that was discussing child trafficking in the Ukraine?
Right, no.
Well, that was another thing. That was the thing that was floating around. And so this was the thing. And then it was like, then when Sound of Freedom came out, or became sort of aware to the public, everyone went, oh, is this that documentary? The one about child trafficking in Ukraine? Now, that was bollocks. Mel Gibson was not involved in this film at any stage. Later, he sort of praised it, but he certainly wasn't an exec producer or a writer or anything like that.
And obviously you get confused because of his previous work with Jim Caviezel.
Exactly, on Passion of the Christ.
Because I thought straight away that it was, which shout out to Passion, because I do like it.
Well, fair enough. The criticism that I had of things, actually, it wasn't my criticism. This was a friend of mine at university, but I'm nicking it, and no one will know. He said that the fundamental thing that he got annoyed about with the Passion of the Christ, not the anti-Semitism, he was fine with that. Like, it was the... he said that he was pitted as, this is real, this is a real sort of visceral experience. And basically, like, you know, we're showing the actual violence, the ripping of the tendon, we're showing all this. It's real, almost documentary-like, if you will. And that's how it was sold, that it was like a, not overblown, not sentimental. It was a real, showing the real violence of it. And my friend pointed out that, yeah, but it goes into slow motion every fucking 5 minutes, which completely negates the realism of it. I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good point, actually. My particular take on it was, and this might sound reductive, but if I have to watch another person wash someone's fucking feet, I will scream. And that's just what I took from it. But anyway, yes, you're absolutely right. Because of that, and because Mel Gibson keeps threatening to do sort of, I don't even know if this is real, but have you heard this concept that he's going to do a film called Rothschild about an influential Jewish banking family that secretly control the world? But it's not the Rothschilds. It's just called Rothschild, and the characters are called Rothschild. I don't even know if that's a real thing. I'll be honest, I've got no idea. And what's bizarre is that, and this speaks to sort of some dark elements of the truth movement, is that for whatever reason, people think that Mel Gibson is a good guy. And it's like, really? Why? He tells the truth. And it's like partly based on this one erroneous meme where he talks about some shit or other to do with adrenochrome. And then partly to do with when he started ranting about the Jews ruling the planet. And and that is literally it. And it's like, that's fucking mental. Like, that's not, and Mel Gibson is not a well man, right? Okay, if you've heard that, what he said to the police officers, if you've heard the tapes that he did to his girlfriend when he was pissed, if you, you know what he said about his father, an avid Holocaust denier, when he was pressed on that, your father's a Holocaust denier, what's your take on that? Mel Gibson's answer was, my father's never lied to me.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. So the fact that he's been embraced by, and what's so stupid is that he hasn't really been cancelled. He's been in films and stuff like that. He's not the draw that he was, but that's something more to do with the fact that a lot of the audience, he's not being held back by the Illuminati. The women and stuff that were his sort of demographic, they don't want to see him. Oh, what women want. Didn't he call her a fucking cunt and say if you get raped by a pack of N-words, blah, blah, blah? That's not, that's not the image you want in your head when you're going to see a romantic film and, what you wish to vicariously live yourself through the lead. It doesn't work. So that's why he was cancelled, so to speak.
I hadn't heard about that. I hadn't heard about the Rothschild film though. That's kind of he's touted to make. I've just read recently Mike Rothschild's book, Jewish Space Invaders, about the history of the kind of Rothschild conspiracy theories, which is
it's nonsense. It comes from one leaflet. We did a little bit about it, and it's like we were shocked to find that out because it's such a trope within the conspiracy world. And you find out that the Rothschilds aren't actually worth that much. And all this stuff about, they finance Hitler, that's so ahistorical. They were kicked out of Germany and they had all their assets taken. And the Waterloo thing as well, it's just not true. It's not true. It came from a pamphlet, I forget the bloke's name, a massive anti-Semite. He was called the Satan pamphlet, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And basically, he just, again, built up this trope about the Rothschilds. And at the time, there wasn't that much money in it changed as well from Rothschild being out of the battle to one of his servants being out of the battle. And there was an element of truth to it that they made money from that war because they lent the British Army in Wellington money. But they received that back as a loan with interest. They certainly didn't have a controlling interest of the Bank of England. And there were other bankers that made far more money than. But basically, this is a trope that's all over the place, isn't it? Basically. So again, building on this. Sorry,
a correction then. AP News. The spokesperson for Mel Gibson says he's never been involved in developing a movie about the wealthy Jewish family and has no plans to direct such a film. Gibson was briefly linked to a role in Rothschild, a dark comedy about New York's elite. The film, which was unrelated to the real-life family, has never materialized.
So they got to him like they got to Kubrick. I see. Let's read between the lines there, yeah. Like,
For sure.
so anyway,
Well, he
so
got all the kickback and probably just thought, no, I'm not doing it.
yeah, probably. Like, shit, no, even for me, that's too far. But so
Let
anyway,
Kanye keep all the heat.
yeah. That was probably it. It's like fucking Kanye, bloody ruined my film. Like, anyway,
Kanye's taken all of it, all the heat, but just let him have it. Thanks.
So prior to release, Caviezel and Ballard basically went round and spoke to dozens and dozens of right-wing influencers, and they gave them, and this is all true, $150 to read a pre-written review of Sound of Freedom. And they also basically got the donors to fill... right, now here's the thing. Sorry, excuse me. These horse brasses. Anyway, can you remember when there was that drama like, I've paid to go and see the Sound of Freedom, and apparently it was sold out, but the entire theatre is empty. There is a reason for that, and it's not the Illuminati. What Ballard and Angel Studios decided to do was get the producers and donors of the films to do two things. One, there's this thing called the Pay It Forward scheme, where they would basically do... Essentially, it's the same thing. They bought loads and loads of tickets. They just got their producers and donors to buy up all these tickets with a view to giving them away, but evidently they didn't. So this is the point. So that builds up artificial scarcity. It also basically, they've got all these right-wing influencers telling them about it. But this is why you had so many sold-out things, because like Bad News do, they went out and bought their own fucking thing. And so they hyped up the sales by putting their own money into it, which I'm pretty sure is fraud. But anyway, let's not get bogged down in that. And that sort of created the thing. There's no wish to take away from it. It was a genius grassroots marketing scheme. But it's all based on flim-flam and bullshit, to be quite honest, basically. So the influencers also basically...
What's
here's the
new?
thing. Well, we're quite. But like, you know, you were saying earlier that it was shelved by Disney, and this was a big thing, and basically they were saying that it was shelved by satanic Disney because it was too close to the truth, and it was also too Christian. No, that's not why it was shelved by Disney. Do you want to know why it was shelved by Disney? Because Disney bought Fox at the time. They also said it was shelved by Netflix and Amazon Prime. None of that was true. It was just never offered to those people. They didn't have the option to pick it up. Disney bought Fox, and when they bought Fox, they had literally thousands and thousands of projects. Now, what happened was they were going to release The Sound of Freedom, and then COVID happened. And they went, it's not actually that good a film, and I don't think in this climate people are going to want to watch a film that's so miserable. So they just basically decided we'll release it later. They didn't shelve it. They just didn't think it was very good. Like, there's no political motivation behind it. They just had huge amounts of content, and of their content, they felt that was a bit poor and a bit too depressing to do well. So what happened was Tim Ballard, basically, who also believes in the Wayfair conspiracy theory. Sorry, Brent, go ahead.
When was it actually filmed?
Like 2017, 2018, something like that. It's an old film.
Yeah, it was completed by 2018, so probably 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. Like, you know, it's not really a QAnon film. As we said, it's got the vaguest sort of connection in as much as it speaks to the tropes that it's foreigners across the border, it's swarthy this, it's blah, blah, blah. It's paedophile networks that have headed logos and stuff like that. Like this sort of comic book idea of fighting these paedophilic networks. So in that sense, it sort of has a sort of intersection with it. But this is the point. Most of the people who were hyped up about the film hadn't actually seen the film when they were hyped up about it. They were basically, because of the marketing through Caviezel, through Ballard, through people like Jordan Peterson talking about adrenochrome, talking about Satanism, talking about how it's been shelved. It created this image around the film that basically it isn't real. Now, it gets even worse, really, because like the origin story of which is Operation Underground Railroad. Now, do you want to know why they call it Operation Underground Railroad? It was based on a painting that was done for Tim Ballard that depicts him Now, some might say that he has a fetish for this type of thing, but him and his wife, with armfuls of black babies, rescuing them and taking them on a literal train track, whilst Harriet Tubman sits in the background and looks on reverentially. Right, this is a painting. Yeah, that's why he's called his operation. No, I'm not. Right, and that is why they've called their thing Operation Underground Railroad. Now, Operation Underground Railroad, we'll come on to them a bit more, but they started in 2013. It's absolutely true that he quit his job, but has to his wife. Do you know who financed Operation Underground Railroad?
Glenn Beck.
Glenn Beck.
Really?
Yes.
Glenn Beck. Yeah. Of all the weird, like, sort of strange people, like, now, if I was desperately cynical as well, like, you could suggest that, well, either Glenn Beck is actually doing a rather good thing here, or he realizes that this could be useful in the culture war or whatever. But who could possibly speak to his motivation? But anyway, the origin story that Tim Ballard speaks about is the what's his name, Earl Buchanan story. So as we all saw in the and this has been relayed by Tim Ballard many times, he says that it happened just like in the film. He was there and he spotted that child in the car with Earl Buchanan. He spoke to the boy. The boy gave him a necklace and told him to go look for his sister. And he's been searching for that sister ever since. Now that's kind of also mashed together with this story. We'll come on to that in a bit, basically. But anyway, so they had all of this and the sort of pay it forward things, but like so it's very righteous, and that was made sort of clear. So this is the organization, and how they sold it was, if you go and watch this film, you are directly contributing to stopping paedophilia. That's what they did. Like, you are doing your small bit to stop sex trafficking of children if you just send us some money. Like, and personally, I thought it was desperately cynical and saw through it right from the start. However, other people have felt that this is a worthy cause.
Yeah, I think like just coming back to like how the film actually ended was like and again we spoke about the use of like the real footage and the montage, the way the kind of this film bookended itself within being like real, this stuff really happens.
Yeah.
It then also chose to have statistics at the end.
Ah,
And I felt that kind of elevated it even more, that it felt like it was framing it, that it was more than just a movie.
yeah,
That
yeah.
it actually put itself up as being, this is part of a real life campaign. So it played beyond even being like a piece of pure entertainment or raising awareness. It was like an actual, real campaign. Get on board. It was, again, genius marketing, but really plays into this whole debate around authenticity, which I think is where
as far as I could tell, those statistics that they pulled out at the end, he pulled them out of his arse. They're not. They literally sort of kind of made them up. But even if you look at them, it's like, how is that even quantifiable if all of this is in secret? Like, do you know what I mean? It's one of those.
Yeah,
But like, but anyway, so the origin story of why he and Glenn Beck decided to start Operation Underground Railroad is that this lad was smuggled from Mexico into the USA, and the idea was that he was going to be taken to one of these sex hotels in San Bernardino. And Tim Ballard literally stopped this man at the border and prevented this all from happening. He then got the necklace from this boy. And so, according to Tim Ballard, that is all true. And that is the reason, and that's been repeated by him and Glenn Beck, and that's the reason they started Operation Underground Railroad. Is that true? Well, let's find out. So, the accuracy of the film. Like, some people have sort of, like, said that certain aspects of this are not true. Now, to be fair, when I was checking this, some of the things that I thought were not true turned out to actually be true. Like, which just is more of a testament to how fucking piss poor the writing was. As we said earlier, the raid on the island actually happened. Like, it was an actual event. Like, and the woman who's depicted as Giselle was a lady called Joanna, who's also known as Miss Cartagena. She was caught there with 4 other sex traffickers and 50-odd children. Well, actually, they weren't children, like 50-odd sex workers. And the raid did actually go down like that.
Yeah, I didn't think that it was real either. I thought it was like a nod to Jeffrey Epstein Island or something.
Yes, I did as well. But I also just thought, like, again, why would she be there with the merchandise? That's ridiculous. Like, you wouldn't do that if you were selling speed, let alone children. But, like, apparently that's what she did. So, like, I was wrong there. But
and they all have like connections with the cartels, there as well. So, like, they would. You're dealing with illicit material.
Yeah, I don't think that was true. Like, I don't think all this. I mean, certainly everything after that they decide to pretend to be doctors, none of that ever happened. Tim never went into the jungle on his own. He never rescued a girl from a cartel. He's never killed anybody. That was all bullshit. That's all Hollywood flim-flam. So did Tim Ballard grow frustrated after years of investigating child porn but not rescuing kids? Yes, this is absolutely true. So that is depicted accurately in the film. He worked for the CIA for a year, apparently. He then was for the Department of Homeland Security for 12 years, during which he spent a lot of his time on this internet task force. Now, did he go on a mission to Colombia, and did he quit his job and set up the organization in the way that was depicted in the film? Yes, he did. He absolutely 100% did. He was encouraged by his wife to stay and complete the searches. He was actually in Haiti at the time. And then he received funding from Glenn Beck, and so was able to set up this organization. So this was how he was able to do it. So are the villains in the film, are they based on real people? Some. Fuego, the guy with the eyeliner, is based on a real trafficker. Giselle is based on Kelly Joanna Suarez, who was a real-life trafficker who was arrested with Fuego on Operation Triple Take. So that is absolutely 100% true. Now, Operation Triple Take, in reality, rescued 54 people. Of those 54 people, 29 of them were under 18. The youngest was 11. So it isn't quite as it's depicted in the film. They're using, if you want to be kind, it's a more affecting story. If you want to be cynical, they're exploiting the shit out of their audience. Basically, what happened was that actually all these people, they're all plied with MDMA and cocaine, and it was actually an ICE and HSI, Homeland Security operation. Now, the youngest one was 11, and actually, I know I said earlier like $2,000 is a small amount of money. It is if you're selling it at that point, right? She was bought by Lady Cartagena for $1,000 from another pimp. So they do go cheap, but in the scenario that it was a bit crap. Let's be honest. Now, Vampiro, that guy. Is he based on a real character? Yeah, he is. He's actually based on a real person called Batman, or his actual name is Stephen Cass. But Stephen Cass doesn't want anything to do with the film, and he doesn't want anything to do with Tim Ballard. Because basically he says, I worked with Tim Ballard on one sort of operation. Nothing came of it. I don't think Tim Ballard's serious. He's all about the fame and fortune, not about helping kids. That's what Stephen Cass said.
Wow.
And he didn't work on Triple Take either. And the thing is that basically, like, the way that it's set up as well is slightly fake. He says, no, people don't know me. I haven't got a broad thing. I'm not Flash. I don't have a lot of money. In fact, this is the point. Tim Ballard's made millions off of the back of Underground Operation Railroad. Stephen Cass has actually been doing what Tim Ballard is depicted as doing for years, and he's flat broke because you can't draw attention to yourself because you'll be murdered. It's not a fucking joke, this thing. It's not, and this is the problem that we'll come on to with Operation Underground Railroad. It seems to be a lot of show and a lot of Hollywood-style stuff. And you're dealing with people that don't give a shit about human life. They're trafficking people. They don't care about these people. And so, in many ways, they're basically like, this is harmful. So Ernst Oshinsky. Now, this is a strange one. He's the guy at the beginning. Now, we might have to cut this. Right, okay. I'll just warn you in advance. Did
Don't
anyone
even
else
say
look at it's not, I'm not even trying to be funny here, okay? Did anyone else look at it and go, are they trying to do him up as a Jew? Like, that's what I thought. I don't know if we might cut that, but I thought, Jesus, that's a bit, but it's one of those things where,
Yeah, well,
like,
it
maybe
wasn't
I saw
directed
something
by
that
Mel
wasn't there.
Gibson.
But anyway, apparently Ballard says that the film depiction is sort of fiction based on a true story. Tim Ballard said, Oshinsky, or who he's based on, was one of the more prolific collectors of child exploitation material that I've ever seen. He had over 2 million pieces. And he was an interesting case because he was an intellectual and he'd written a lot about paedophilia, justifying it, making legal arguments for it, and he'd written a book, and I had read that book before we took him down. So I decided to do something crazy because he wasn't responding to interrogation. So something I'd never tried before. And because I'd read so much of his material, I believed that he believed that all men are naturally attracted to children. So I told my partner to walk away, and it took me 45 minutes, and I got him to confess. This is what Tim Ballard says. And I don't wish to sound cynical, but that's fucking bollocks, isn't it? That's a lie. I've never heard anything more fuckingly transparently bollocks. Confess to what? You've got 2 million pieces of child porn on his fucking computer. What's he confessing to? Seriously, that to me sounds made up. But who knows? Tim Ballard swears that this bloke is real. Now we get on to the sort of the slightly more sort of like controversial. Earl Buchanan. Earl Buchanan, even in the film, the person is the character is called Earl Buchanan. He's the guy that basically Oshinsky knows, and he goes to Honduras to get Miguel, takes him to Mexico, and he's caught trying to take him back across the border. And this is kind of based on a real case. Earl Buchanan was 62 years old, and he was stopped at the border trying to get back into the USA with child porn in his car and a 5-year-old boy riding on his lap. Now, what happened was that the porn was basically homemade videos that were on his camcorder of Buchanan molesting a stated boy. And the investigation showed that he'd molested at least 10 children, some as young as 2. So he's genuinely a paedophile, but he isn't a trafficker, right? He did actually have property in Bloomington as well, Bloomington, America, with bunk beds, toys, video games, and recording equipment. So something very, very disturbing was going off. But here's the thing. Buchanan, and this is a distinction that is important, and it will become obvious why later. And I'm in no way defending this guy. Buchanan was not a trafficker of children, as far as anyone could prove. He never trafficked any children. He was a paedophile, and he filmed himself with children, and there was something weird going off at his house, but he was not a trafficker. The boy that he was with was not kidnapped. Okay? He was a lifelong friend of the family. The child's grandmother knew Earl Buchanan since he was a child. They were family friends. Now, what had happened was the boy was American, and he had a sister who lived with the grandmother. And Earl Buchanan had offered to take this boy to Mexico to see his father, and then he would bring him back. So he was away on holiday, and the grandmother knew about it. Now, what happened was that he forgot the lad's passport. They weren't checked when they went into Mexico, but when they came back, they were checked. And when they were checked, they had to go through the whole car. They looked on his camcorder, and the video that was in his camcorder was footage of Buchanan molesting a different child. What's bizarre is that when the boy was taken from him, he was really anxious, like as if Buchanan was a family friend. And under questioning, he claimed that he hadn't actually been molested by Buchanan. So although the guy was a paedophile, he wasn't trafficking children, and he certainly wasn't trafficking this boy. So the entire backstory of him getting the Tim Ballard, basically, he wasn't there. He didn't witness this at all. He claims to have spoken to the child, but that seems to be a lie. His job was he arrived 45 minutes later, got the videotape out of the camcorder, put it into a plastic bag, and then sodded back off to put it into evidence. That was his job, right?
Because we found a article, didn't we, that like reported about it at the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it said the customs noticed that he was acting shifty.
But this is the thing. It wasn't a sting. It wasn't even that he was actually shifty. Like, that was the thing. It wasn't that. He forgot this lad's paperwork. If he'd had this lad's passport, they'd have sailed through and nobody would have ever bothered. It wasn't a sting. It was a routine check off the back of a paperwork app. And then they found this video. So it looks like the boy himself potentially wasn't actually molested by this Earl Buchanan. Anyway, so Ballard's story is that the boy gave him a necklace and it had a verse from Timothy on it, right? Okay. And he claims that the boy gave him the necklace because he knew that Tim was good, which is actually like a Mormon thing, that you can project goodness and stuff like that. So he ran to Tim Ballard from Buchanan's car and hugged him and gave him the necklace and asked him to save his sister. And this is bollocks on a number of levels. 1, Ballard wasn't there. 2, the necklace doesn't exist. 3, the sister was back at home in America with the grandmother. So, but this is the origin story for Operation Underground Railroad. And for years, Ballard's told interviews that the movie story that the boy had a kidnapped sister was true. And this is a total lie. The girl's name was Yanelli. She was at home. So the Rocchio character is based kind of on Yanelli and kind of on this person called Gardy, who they never actually found. But basically, like, that's a complete and total lie. They did actually once dress up as a UN doctor, but that particular mission didn't actually yield any success. It gets worse. So Operation Underground Railroad, right? Founded in 2013 by Tim Ballard with money from Glenn Beck. It's an anti-sex trafficking organisation, and it claims to have conducted multiple sting operations, some overseas, and rescued literally thousands of children. Now, the evidence for this is, shall we say, scant, right? Tim started it, according to Glenn Beck, because of the Pedro story, which is the story about Glenn Bannon. Miguel was called Pedro in real life. That's total fabrication. It's an absolute fabrication. And, like, you know, he could say that, like, oh, we started this because God's children are not for sale, right? They made a real error there, okay, right? They don't understand markets. You know, by saying that God's children are not for sale, what that will do is it'll make scarcity in the market, which will not only drive up the requirement and desire for God's children, but also the profit margin. And I don't think he's thought that through. Like, so, but anyway, we digress. So anyway, so in 2014, this is true. The Operation Triple Take happened, and Operation Underground Railroad was actually involved, but it was an HSI operation. It was on the island, and then 2 other locations in Colombia, and in total, apparently, they rescued 123 people. But they weren't children, or the majority of them weren't children. Doesn't mean that it wasn't a fabulous thing to do. Good, we've rescued these people from a horrible existence, but yeah, it wasn't quite how they expected it. Now, here's an interesting thing. In February 2016, the Internet Crimes Against Children's Task Force, or the ICAC, which is the organization from Homeland Security that Tim Ballard used to work with, they were advised by the Justice Department of America against being involved in, assisting, or supporting in any way operations with Operation Underground Railroad. Because as early as 2016, people were like, this organization is slapdash, it doesn't know what it's doing, it's dangerous on its raids, and furthermore, we think that it's actually taking money from its donors and telling them that they're doing lots of raids and stuff, but not actually doing anything. So it's also been described as QAnon adjacent, because Ballard has spoken about adrenochrome Q, the Wayfair conspiracy. He said in an interview that Wayfair, you know, the concept that basically that set of drawers costs £9,000. It's not an error on the computer. It's because you get a child in the drawer. Apparently,
it was like when that whole thing happened, I was shocked at the people that I knew that believed that.
Well, you know, if you think of the intelligence of the average person, then you realise that the majority of those people are fucking stupider than that. They're like,
I feel like the way that people
but here's the thing.
Though, like, the way that people picked that up was very akin to urban legends.
Yeah.
Like people will believe Slender Man or something like that just off the bat because a bunch of people are talking about it. So I felt like
edibles or raisins in candy or sort of, you know, edible sweets. Like, who the fuck's wasting the sweets like that just to watch a load of kids whitey in the street? Bollocks. I'm not doing that. Like, anyway, Tim Ballard would disagree with you, Greg. Tim Ballard says, trust me, I know. That is how children are trafficked. That's an exact quote. He's a prick. He's obviously talking bollocks. but yeah. But he also defended, he believes in QAnon, but he also defended like even the wackier aspects of it. And he said to the New York Times that the good thing about QAnon is that some of these theories have allowed people to open their eyes to what's really going on. And again, this all sort of played into the marketing and stuff like that. In 2020, Vice had a story. There was famed anti-sex trafficking group has a problem with the truth. And they identified a divide between the group's actual practices and some of the claimed successes. What we found aren't outright falsehoods, but are a pattern of image burnishing, mythology building, and a series of exaggerations that are, in the aggregate, quite misleading. And the article states that basically complaints had been recently received in Utah about Operation Underground Railroad, and that's where it's based. And this has been considered as early as 2016, 2017, because basically what they're suggesting is that they're misleading donors. They're taking huge amounts of money and telling people that they're doing these operations and even reporting successes, but then caveating that with, we can't actually give you any of the details of this because we don't want to reveal the identity of these children and stuff. They've been traumatized enough, but trust us, G. Like, we've been out there and we've rescued 58 kids this week. Like, it's literally that sort of level of like, trust me, bro. And they take in a huge amount of money, like millions and millions of dollars, basically. Like, but it's not a con, according to Tim Ballard. So we shall go on. But
it sounds like the whole thing is just a grift. And this guy,
it does sound like that, doesn't it? Yes, there may be a reason that it sounds exactly like that, which is that it may well be that. Like, like, you know, if it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck, like, but who knows, Greg? Let's find out. So anyway, basically, like, previous employees say that basically it's very rare for them to actually do anything other than filter donations to other charities that do rescue children. So what they'll do is they'll take, let's just say hypothetically, they'll take £1,000 off of you and we'll give £500 to this organisation that actually does deal with child trafficking. What happens to that other £500? Who can say? That is the accusation that has been levelled against them, basically. Now, federal and state agencies that should have connections to Operation Underground Railroad, you know, if they're this international trafficking thing, there's loads of organizations out there that already deal with that sort of thing, right? Okay. Not a single one of them has any knowledge of Operation Underground Railroad, which is bizarre because if they are in all of these different countries and have all of these sort of success stories, you would expect them to have rubbed shoulders potentially with the people that are already doing that there. But so they say that basically federal and state agencies that should have connections to Operation Underground Railroad, if they were considered legit, simply do not exist. Other relationships are massively overplayed. For example, Washington State Patrol, which they claim to sort of work with, all that happened was that basically Operation Underground Railroad sent them $200,000 over the years. And to be honest, the State Department in Washington has a budget in the billions. So that's nothing. It's like pissing in the ocean, essentially. And the State Patrol themselves have said that any associations with Operation Underground Railroad were not worth it due to other considerations, basically. So all the people that they claim to be aligned with don't really seem to actually support this. He claims to work in 26 countries, but provides absolutely no details of who it works with. And traffic charities and aftercare organisations that do work in the countries that they claim to work in have no knowledge of them. So the question is, where is the money going? Now, one of Operation Underground Railroad's success stories is a story of a girl called Liliana, who was... Now, this is what Ballard's story is, and he's used this several times to tap into the MAGA crowd and say that this is a reason why the wall should be built at the border. Ballard's story: 13-year-old Liliana. Sometimes he tells the story that she's 11, sometimes she's 12. She's never older than 13. Liliana was kidnapped from Central America and trafficked over the border and taken to New York, where she was raped 40 times a day. But she was rescued by Operation Underground Railroad in Stings. The true story is that she was 14, which is still very, very normal. What had happened is she'd met up with a 17-year-old boy, and he said that he loved her, and she moved in with his family, and she'd been abused by her family, so, like, you know, she's got tragic circumstances. She moves in with this boy who says that he loves her, and his family is all keen on her and everything. And they say that they've got a plan. They're going to move to New York, and they're going to get a job there. Once they've got enough money, they're going to come back to Mexico, get married, and have children. Now, Greg, you've seen Liliana Forever. You know where this goes, right?
Absolutely.
This is the classic lover boy method, and this is the This is the problem again that we'll come on to later. This trope of men in dirty macs stealing kids off the street. Wow! So I'm not saying it never happens. The more likely is this sort of long-term grooming. Andrew Tate is the perfect example of that.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, this is the lover boy technique. So what actually happened was they decided to move to America, and the second that they basically did, now here's the other thing, okay? They tried 3 times to get over the border and got caught twice. Like the third time they got into Arizona, and they made their way to New York. And the second they got to New York, this lad all of a sudden decided he wasn't so keen on this girl. He locked her in an apartment, and he basically coerced her to doing sex work. Now, she was there with a lot of other girls, and she was expected to see 15 to 20 clients a day. All of this is horrible, right, Kate? But you'll notice that Tim Ballard has unnecessarily lied. He's made her younger. He's lied about her being kidnapped. He's lied about how they got across the border. And he's lied about the circumstances. Did Operation Underground Railroad, did they rescue this girl? Did they? Bollocks. No. This girl very bravely, she wasn't rescued by anybody. She very bravely one day decided, I'm going to make a run for it. She made a run for it, got into a taxi, and went to the local police station. Incredibly brave. Okay. And a tragic story. But so there's no kidnap. She wasn't quite as young. There's an exaggeration of details. It misses out the lover boy method for this trope of evil satanic paedophiles. And Operation Underground Railroad was never involved at any stage. This is this and the Pedro story are the stories that Operation Railroad use to show that they are a legit organization. Neither of them are true. Neither of them are true.
They're completely appropriated to other people's stories.
Yeah. And in those stories, they just lied about the basic details. Neither of them were kidnapped. Neither of them were rescued. Right? Okay. So, and then they exaggerated about them, about the other details, which is just fucking despicable. And Glenn Beck has repeated that story as well as far as I know.
It's like the film is an extension of this guy's ego.
Yes, precisely.
Everything it's about is just fabrication.
Yeah.
And centering himself as being.
And there's no need for it, is there? This is the point, right? You know the stories that they've actually got. Those 2 stories are horrific enough. You don't need to fabricate that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, because again, they're playing to a specific market. They're playing to a specific sort of demographic that wants to hear this is the thing. It's like, it's almost fetishistic, this concept about children. It's God's children. God's children being kidnapped.
Yes.
God's children being kidnapped and I can't stand to think about it, but strangely, I think about it all fucking day. And it's like, right, dude, like, anyway. So another of the founding stories concerns a lad called Gardy Mardy. He was, he's the Haitian boy that Rocchio is based on. And he basically went, right, this is horrible. He went missing in 2009, right? In 2014, so just after Operation Underground Railroad has started, Tim Ballard meets up with this lad's father and he says, I know where this boy is. He's in Haiti. He goes to Haiti and they're on an operation and he brought this woman called Janet. And this is the one where they pretended to be doctors. This is the one they dressed up as UN doctors, right? He phoned this lad's father and said, I know where your son is. I'll have him by the end of today. He'll be back home with you by the end of the week. Or words to that effect. Okay. Do you know what his source was? His source was how he knew where this boy was in Haiti. It was a lady called Janet from Utah who professed to be a psychic. And she had seen visions of Gardy in a village in Haiti. So they turned up in this, what they assumed was this village, with this fucking soccer mom, right? Dressed as UN doctors. And basically he says that she's like, and he's told this bloke that his kid's coming home. One of the bizarre things was, and this is where you start to think that maybe they have ulterior motives for this sort of thing. They took a film crew. They took a film crew to Haiti on this dangerous mission, right? You know why? Because as early as 2014, Operation Underground Railroad was trying to set itself up as a reality TV show. Because that's what you want to do when you're rescuing trafficking kids.
What?
Yeah. Operation Underground Railroad has been filming its raids since as early as 2014 with a view, and they've pitched this to several networks, to being a reality TV show where sexy Tim Ballard rescues trafficked children from all over the world. A bit like that Steven Seagal cop show, only with far, far, like, greater danger. Like, I know, it's bizarre, isn't it? But
that tells you everything about the guy's ethics and
doesn't it?
What motivates him, right?
And then you've got real people like Stephen Cass who are actually doing this, who's saying, I don't want anything to do with this guy. I don't want anything to do with this guy. This guy's not ethical. This guy's doing it in order to boost his own image. And he's doing something that basically, like, no one can argue against rescuing children. Why? Do you know what I mean? Like, but this is the thing. It seems to be a bit of a smokescreen. So basically, he brought over a film crew. Because they brought over a film crew because he had plans to make a reality TV show about rescuing children. But unfortunately, they found no trafficked children. In fact, no foreign children at all in this village. And after basically pestering the locals for a bit, the locals sort of got their pitchforks together and said, would you kindly fuck off? And they did. And that was it, basically. So he had to phone the bloke's dad and say, yeah, we didn't actually find your kid and he won't be coming home to you. And they've never found that child. Like, they've never found that child, which is horrific on so many levels, basically. But people that were there with them said that they seemed more concerned with filming exciting footage than actually finding children. And again, this is because they were trying to set up a reality TV show. The only other tactic that they really had during this time was something that was described by many people who observed it as disgusting and very, very dangerous. What they'd do is they'd go to legitimate brothels in Thailand, say, or Haiti, or where, okay? They'd whip out a wedge and go, I've got $1,000 here for anyone that can get me a child. That's what they'd fucking do. And what some people might have already noticed or potentially, like, thought is that, well, so what that actually does is people go, $1,000 is a lot of money. I could fucking get a child. And so all of a sudden they go and get a child. And then all of a sudden you've got all these kids that are introduced into the sex trade in order to be sold to Operation Underground Railroad that weren't prostitutes yesterday. And then they don't buy them. So what do you do with these kids? And this has happened apparently time and time again. And observers and people who used to work for the company says that all this did was basically encourage pimps to get younger and younger children. And we did nothing about it. So they're creating a problem that wasn't there before. And several members left Operation Underground Railroad saying they literally created young prostitutes by requesting. They created demand in the market because all of a sudden they're there. Now, so the other thing about Operation Underground Railroad is that they're actually opposed to all sex work, legal or not. People that basically aren't trafficked, but so in a lot of their statistics and stuff like that, they will include anybody that works in a brothel, anybody that is a sex worker, anybody that is an adult, and they will basically lie and say that these are children. What people who've observed it saying that they do these things called jump teams. Now, again, the way that you can get into these jump teams is by basically giving some money. They claim that they basically they train, they've got military professionals and they're going on these things. These jump teams, if you give enough donations, you can go and do it. And the courses that they go on, they never result in actually finding any children. They just result in fucking real estate people. It's almost like territorial army, but I'm going into Haiti. I'm going to go and get some kids back. And so they take money from these people. They say, oh, by the way, you need to support yourself and live on your own money whilst you're in Haiti until we go on the operation. And then they do the operation over a day, nothing happens, and then these people have to fuck off home. But the idea, so they're basically putting really, really inexperienced people in dangerous situations and not actually achieving any results. And when they do go into legal brothels, all they really do is basically tell the women, you should really quit this. And by the way, have you ever heard of Mormonism? And so they're treating us as sort of proselytizing missionary. Yeah, precisely. They're not actually doing what it is that they say that they're going to do. In 2014, right, some missions have yielded results, but they seem to have been right at the beginning. And then after that, again, this hasn't been proven because you can't prove because there's no evidence of what they do. But since about 2014, it seems that they've just gone, I will just pretend to do stuff and people will send us money anyway. I don't know that to be a fact, lawyers, but that would certainly be what looks like it. And so anyway, in 2014, they took a woman called Meg Conley. She was asked to join one of the jump teams. And she went to a place where basically 26 children were brought into a house for a party by traffickers. And Ballard was there. And her job, right, because there was going to be a police raid, and he wanted her to write about it. But he told her you'll go outside. All the children outside were near the pool. Your job is to keep them there. And at an appropriate time, I'll give the signal, and then the police will raid the operation. Now, what happened was she was outside with these children. This was a genuine operation. Tim called her inside. And the second that he called her inside, he hit the button that announced the raid. And the police swatted the place. They didn't know who she was. So they put a gun to her and cuffed her, put her on the floor. Now, he promised her that he wouldn't put her in harm's way. All right? Why did he do that? Because she's a writer. He wanted her to write a book about him and to have all the juicy details. So he purposely put her in a dangerous situation so that she would have first-hand knowledge of that. Now, according to Anne Gallagher is one of the world's leading experts on human trafficking. She says, Operation Underground Railroad's raids show an alarming lack of understanding about how sophisticated criminal trafficking groups must be approached and dismantled. Operation Underground Railroad's operations are arrogant, unethical, and illegal. And so she just simply doesn't really she doesn't rate them at all. Now, there's also been criticism of the film. Right now, the criticism has come from other trafficking organisations, and even the studio, Angel Studios itself, admitted that there's certain factors which are fiction, like he didn't kill, etc., etc., etc. However, and this I forget exactly the organisation, but this was in the USA Today. Sound of Freedom misleads audience about reality of human trafficking. Depictions of child trafficking and rescue tactics are highly sensationalized, misleading, and do more harm than good. Contrary to what is shown in the film, most child trafficking victims know and trust their traffickers. They are not kidnapped by shadowy strangers from street corners. A Baylor University study found that less than 10% of child trafficking cases involve kidnapping. By highlighting false narratives and reinforcing inaccurate stereotypes, we condition ourselves to be on high alert for things like windowless vans, and we fail to notice actual signs of exploitation. In doing so, we may miss the economically and socially vulnerable young person lured into trafficking by offers of meals, shelter, or companionship. And they also point out that the average age of a trafficked child is 12. And again, we were saying earlier that the film and QAnon itself have this sort of weird fetishization of far, far younger children, basically, because again, it ties in. It's more sinister. It just ties in with things that they say. Now, has anybody else criticized the film? Yeah. Criticized the film quite heavily. Operation Underground Railroad. That's embarrassing, isn't it? The organisation that Tim Ballard set up has massively criticised the film. They also kicked Tim Ballard out of Operation Underground Railroad for reasons that we shall come on to shortly. This is on the Operation Underground Railroad's website. This story, talking about Sound of Freedom, depicts what human trafficking typically looks like. This is false. At the first of the film, it shows security camera footage of several different kidnappings. This is real footage, and while this type of human trafficking exists, it isn't the majority. When we hear the phrase sex trafficking, our minds often picture dusty, dark alleyways in foreign countries where orphaned children from the streets are kidnapped, exploited, and sold. And that is a horrific reality, but it is also important to understand that sex trafficking is not just a foreign issue, but an acute domestic concern within the USA that is ever increasing. According to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, human trafficking is reported in all 50 states of the United States. Predators are soccer coaches, trusted teachers, neighbors, aunts, and uncles. The film also depicts children in shipping containers. It is important to know that Hollywood took creative license on portraying the different ways children can be trafficked. While cases can exist where children are transported in various vehicles, most trafficking happens through a manipulative grooming process. Sound of Freedom illustrates this well in the child modeling scenes where children, and sometimes parents, are led to believe that they can make money from modeling and receive food if they come to a house, or receive love if they become the trafficker's boyfriend or girlfriend, and it ends in sexual exploitation or trafficking. So that is a legitimate criticism that's been leveled at the film, that it oversimplifies stuff. It plays to this sort of these tropes that just so happen to tie in with the silliness of QAnon and stuff. Now, that's not the worst thing about Tim Ballard and Operation Railroad. As some people might know, certain people connected to the film were, slightly ironically, accused of sexual exploitation and even the kidnapping of children. Was this true? Well, the first thing that happened was there was a chap called Fabian Martu, who's 51, and the story that went around was he helped finance Sound of Freedom. He was a producer on the film, and he was arrested for child kidnapping. And this really sort of people sort of took quite great pleasure from this, like on the internet, because it was like ha 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 ha, you silly QAnon sots. But in the interest of honesty, because we are honest here, he wasn't a producer on the film. He donated $500 as part of the crowdfunding thing. There's over 6,000 people that donated money towards it, and he was one of them. So he really wasn't involved in the film at all, other than on a very, very basic level, despite boasting about it on Facebook, saying that he helped finance the film, which is fair enough. But also, he didn't kidnap a child. A, he was found not guilty, but B, he didn't actually kidnap a child. It was a total misunderstanding. What happened was this bloke, Fabian Marta, totally innocent, accused of kidnapping a child. He owns a series of flats. And in one of the flats, the woman that lived there got into a dispute with her ex-husband about rights to see children. That was it. And the press got it completely wrong. So this poor sod was pilloried, and his photos everywhere. And I was looking at it, and still people to this day are like, ha, producer for a QAnon film actually is a child trafficker himself. It's like, no, he wasn't. Poor sod was completely innocent. However, the executive producer of Sound of Freedom, Paul Hutchinson, was accused of sexual groping of a 16-year-old. And this is on film because, as I told you, they were trying to do a reality TV show. So they filmed all their aides, right, okay, up until about 2016. And on this film, it can be shown groping the breasts of one of the traffic victims that they find in one of these raids.
What?
Yeah, which is not on. Okay. Now, in his defense, Paul Hutchinson has said that she was 18.
What?
Now, that's not much of a defense, I'll be honest. So it's not sexual assault of a minor. It's just sexual assault. Anyway, like this was actually investigated by the FBI, but because essentially, like, they don't know who this girl is, and you know they can't explain the circumstances, there's no pursuing of that. So he wasn't actually found guilty. However, Tim Ballard himself was forced to resign from Operation Underground Railroad in October, well, actually very, very recently, after being accused of sexual misconduct by 7 women. Now, right, you know what the fucking guy did? You know in True Lies, where Bill Paxton tries to get Jamie Lee Curtis to sleep with him by saying, we're going to go abroad, we pretend to be spies, yeah, but we're going to have our roles are that we're husband and wife. We have to act natural. That's what fucking Tim Ballard did. That's what he did.
Wow.
He got a series of women and he says, we need to act natural in this scenario. So in order to act natural, I'm going to have to watch you shower. And then you're going to have to give me a lap dance. And then we're going to have to do certain sexual touching, not penetration, but certain sexual touching. And this is what he's been accused of by 7 women. He's also basically been accused of using booze, drugs, and paying prostitutes, which, I mean, I don't know if you know much about Mormonism, but that's not really one of the things that they tend to do. They frown on that. Actually, like the Church of Latter-day Saints has actually rebuked Ballard for morally unacceptable activities. So he would coerce these women into sexual acts, and he would say things like, is there anything that you wouldn't do to save a child? Which is very, very creepy. And basically he'd also said to certain women as well, it's like, no, you need to act natural. You need to basically, do this, because if we're out there in the field and you act like you're not my wife, we could be killed by the cartel. That's, again, that's called coercing someone into sexual assault. Like that, yeah, incredibly thing. And another thing that Tim Ballard would do is, he would do ketamine treatments. Now, what would happen in this? We don't know the entire details, but essentially, he'd take, as my grandpa would describe, a fuck ton of ketamine, and then he would sit there chatting with the prophet Nephi. Right, the prophet Nephi is the angel, I believe, that gave Adam Smith the gold tablets in Mormonism. I think that's the right person. Anyway, he would chat to him, and Nephi would convey to him, whilst he was on all this ketamine, prophecies. And the prophecies that Tim Ballard saw, that he would actually become a senator, then the president of the United States, and then he would be revealed to be the Mormon prophet, which would usher in the second coming of Christ. And apparently this is a Mormon prophecy. He didn't say anything about the sexual assault, lawsuits and stuff like that. So I think at best we can say that the prophet Nephi was selective with his prophecies. So yeah. So that's the saga of Tim Ballard and the Sound of Freedom. So again, it's a very dull film with a genius marketing campaign by somebody that sounds like he's not a particularly good person, that is using the sort of smokescreen of rescuing children in order to feather his own nest.
He seems like an absolute charlatan.
Isn't he? And this is the thing. And the reason that we've had to go in all those, because a lot of people might have listened to this, like defaming the guy, just like destroying his character. That's the importance, because that's how the film was sold. The film was sold on this righteousness. This film was sold on this organization that is helping children. And the fact that if you watch the film, you're helping children. You're not. You're helping the sort of person that blackmails women into letting him watch them shower. That's what you're doing. It's despicable. And again, there are certain problems with the film. It's astonishing, isn't it? Like this is the thing. The reality TV show, like the lying, the use of psychics, taking inexperienced people and putting them in dangerous situations. What looks like embezzlement of funds. Ugh. There's a better film there. There's a better film than Sound of Freedom. Come on, Greg. Let's get this done. Like, but yeah. So that is the broader saga of Sound of Freedom.
If you make it, Greg, call it the sound of incarceration.
But yeah. So there we go. And as you say, there's always more to the story than meets the eye.
So my review at the very beginning of this is a film that didn't even need to be made pretty much stands.
Absolutely. It would seem that everything is designed to promote the, for want of a better phrase, cult, I mean cult of identity of Tim Ballard. You know, we're selling the idea of Tim Ballard. Tim Ballard's made a huge amount of money from this. And it's one of those things where who wouldn't want to help? Who wouldn't want to rescue children? But unfortunately, it seems that whilst there are certain elements of truth, and he was involved in certain things, he's massively, again, like the Vice article says, there is actual outright falsities and outright lies, including the origin story, but it's mostly sort of exaggerations, overstatements, overplaying, their involvement and stuff like that. It's a con. It's a grift. It may have even started with a degree of she wanting to do some good, but it's just a grift.
Do you want to finish off, Greg, with some final thoughts and what you were saying about Joseph Campbell and Hero Story?
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about how this guy is such a charlatan, has kind of centered himself and pulled upon these really kind of emotive topic. In some of the notes I made were this idea that films kind of normalize ideology. And this is like a mediocre, melodramatic,
yes,
overly emotional with its music and sensationalist politics. And it's like narrative when it draws on the mythology of the hero's journey so that journey will deeply resonate with a mass audience. And it's trying to normalize and make a hero of a guy that by all intents and purposes is like a charlatan and a liar and a narcissist. And, it really doesn't do any help to the cause of stopping child abuse and trafficking because it plays towards this much more bigger international conspiracy rather than how real kind of abuse happens. So he is absolutely sensational and does push a moral panic. So I think he's a very political, the context of it is very political. And then I just wanted to, as always, a few choice reviews from Letterboxd. Someone said, a movie about reuniting stolen children with their families brought to you by the people who gleefully supported separating immigrant families at the border. I thought that was really
nice.
Were they children? Someone gave it half a star. Yeah, someone gave it half a star and said could have used even more white saviors. Which, and then the last one, someone this was a beautiful turn of phrase. They said the way people were walking out of the theater, you'd think it were one of the Schindler's List viewings for Holocaust survivors rather than a conservative Christian action film.
Yeah, spot on.
So I think that perfectly encapsulates the context. So yeah, then my thoughts on it.
Spot on. I think that's it. I think that's the way to end it, man.
In a time of mass information, in a time of mass propaganda, in a time of echo chambers and mass debates, who can you trust? Who can you believe? Who knows the truth? And who will dare call it conspiracy? Some dare call it conspiracy. Starring Neil Sanders and Brent Lee. After 20 years in the rabbit hole, some dare call it conspiracy is here to find out where the truth lies. Some dare call it conspiracy.